Hello, good people, and welcome to You Are Not Alone Conversations with Black Mothers Parenting Children on the Autism Spectrum. Now, today we have the great pleasure of talking to Keisha. Now, Keisha is a mother of a Black child on the autism spectrum, but her son is an adult. So, we are going to hear from the perspective of a mother who is parenting an adult son on the spectrum. After the intro, we're going to learn from the words of wisdom and the details of Keisha's mothering journey. Good evening, Keisha. It's so nice to be here with you today. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for having me.
Boom, bang, pow. It is my absolute pleasure. And I know that we're going to learn so much from your story and your expertise today. So, can you tell me a bit about your mothering journey and some of the challenges or significant moments that you've experienced?
Gosh. Well, first of all, just I would like just to share a little bit about just my family dynamic. I'm married. I've been married now. May will be 30 years. My oldest son, Aaron, who's on the autism spectrum, he just turned 29 in January. And then my youngest son, Bryant, will be 21 in May, and he has ADHD. So our family dynamic is full of neurodiversity and fun, and I also have ADHD myself, late diagnosed. So to say that our journey as a family has been a roller coaster would be an understatement. But it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing. So as Sophia on the Golden Girls would like to say, picture it, picture it as 1995. My husband and I are new parents, 22 years old. We have Aaron, and everything's going well for about a year. And then around 96, mid 96, his language went away. And it felt like overnight. And sometimes time, when you reflect back, time has a way of maybe distorting things, but it really felt like it was overnight. I'm sure it wasn't, but it felt
Mhm.
like it was overnight. So um I was raised, I'm the only girl, oldest, and type A personality. So immediately, I was like, what, we have to figure out what's going on.
Right.
So we take him to his pediatrician, and he's like, "Oh, he has fluid in his ears. Get the tubes put in. His language will come back, no problem." So we're like, "Okay, we're young. You're young parents.
Mhm.
Trust the docs." And I'm not saying don't trust them, but we're like, "Okay." So we get the tubes put in, and then we wait, and no language. So we're like, "Okay." So this is now going towards fall 96, 1996. And we're like, his language hasn't come back. What do we do? And so in our area, we live in North Carolina, rural North Carolina. And so we're like, what do we do? So I do my research, and we end up going to the Children's Hospital of King's Daughter, that's located in Norfolk, Virginia, which is an hour north of us. And they, have wonderful specialists there. So we went there, and he received his first diagnosis of speech delay, and
Okay.
I tell people, that started our journey.
Wow.
And so, like I said, he got his first, delay. It's a speech delay. And so we started speech therapy. He received speech therapy in daycare. Wherever he was in daycare, he had, speech therapy. But he did not speak again in terms of these are full sentences, words, that type of thing, until he was in pre-K. So from a year and maybe 4 months till four and some change, we did not hear our child like talk in
Mm,
terms of you would think a typical
right.
2, 3, 4-year-old child talk.
Wow.
Yeah.
The thing that I find utterly fascinating is that this is happening in 1996.
Hmm.
My son was born in 2006, and we went through our journey shortly thereafter. And my journey mirrors your journey
Hmm.
more than 10 years later. That
Yes.
10 years later, I am going in with something that I notice, and I'm being told that is not what I think it is. And then we have to go down the road of speech until I end up pushing a little harder and
Right.
end up reaching out to Stanford University directly and saying, hey, my name's Elle Brown and I need somebody to put eyes on my baby.
Right.
Um, I do understand that women here in more recent years are having an easier go of it in certain areas that are more progressive, and they have, autism centers, or they have initiatives there that work directly with families very quickly. Um, but there's something about that gap between when a parent notices something and when they come in agreement with the clinician or the practitioner. Because I always like to say that, parents are experts on their children. You may not have the professional jargon to describe exactly what it is you're seeing in the way that a clinician may understand or a practitioner may understand readily, but you know what you see. I'm
Correct.
in the office because something is not setting well in my spirit. Something I feel like somebody else's eye so needs to be on my child. So I'm praying for the day that that's a blip of a gap instead of a longer period of time, because our babies, they need that diagnosis or that assessment sooner rather than later.
And I
And
think, oh, I'm sorry. I'm
no,
sorry.
no, go ahead,
But
go ahead.
no, I think that there are a few things at play, and I think because we're in the field of autism and education and therapy, that our your research and my definite reading has shown that our children in African American community are diagnosed later with autism, and I think that that's a cultural thing. I think that our unfortunately there's medical racism. There is a discounting of what we see as parents.
Mhm,
Um, and I also think to tie in with that, because it's a lot of systemic things going on. I know, at least in my case, almost it was almost 30 years ago, there wasn't a lot of information out about autism spectrum disorder. So a lot of pediatricians or just basic medical professionals weren't educated about it, and so they were quick to say, "Oh, he'll grow out of it.
mm.
It's just a speech thing, that type of thing." And so that's what happened with my son, too, as as a mother, and also too as a clinician, because as I became a clinician.
Keisha, we lost you for a second.
Oh, I'm
Can
sorry.
you just go back probably about 10, 15 seconds?
Um, what what I've learned to understand or have empathy for is that people just don't have information. And I
Mhm,
really believe that if people have the information, they can make better and informed choices. For example, Aaron's pediatrician, he really felt like Aaron would just grow out of it. He really felt like his language would come.
mhm,
And so I felt like I came to understand that he just was an older gentleman and just didn't
mhm.
know.
Yeah,
And I didn't blame him. I didn't blame him. I just understood. I understood that he couldn't serve him the way
right.
he needed to be served. And so then we went to other specialists. And so as I became a clinician and started helping my clients and autistic clients in practice, I would help parents to understand that, people aren't always like out to get your child. They might
Mhm,
just, they don't understand what autism is, and they don't embrace it. And so We don't always have to be fighting, always have to have our guard up. We can educate and collaborate.
Mhm.
So that's what my journey has been, both professionally and personally, because the journey really has been concurrent, as
Mhm.
far as autism and what I do both personally and for a living. Because actually, and I hadn't thought about it until I was really, doing, podcasts like this and interviews with people. Um, is that as Aaron was exhibiting his symptoms and going through his issues, I went back to school, and I remember vividly having this conversation with my mom and my dad, and I was like, I want to go back to school, and my mom was like, well, what's stopping you? And she's Southern Belle, well, what's stopping you? And I said, well, Aaron, I can't leave him.
Right.
And she was like, nope, you need to go ahead and go to school, so when you get out, it'll be time for him to go to school, and you'll be there for him.
Mhm.
And it's divine that my master's is a dual master's in substance abuse clinical counseling and rehabilitation counseling. So the
Mhm.
rehabilitation counseling part allows me, or informed me, educated me on the ADA, the IEPs, 504s, you know, all of that. So when it was time for him to go to school, I knew all of that. I was
Okay.
prepared for all of that. And then as I became a clinician, a licensed clinician, and my clients start coming through and they had IEPs, 504s, autism, ADHD, then I could advocate for them in the
Mhm.
public school system. I could
Mhm.
help, I could help their families. I could,
Mhm.
help them come up with goals and plans. And when I think about it now, and they call it, okay, I'm getting ready to go in my meeting. What do I say? Or they say, I want you to come. I want you to come to the meeting. And then, I step up in there with my meeting in my binder. And so those things, have been happening concurrently the whole time. Like, I was talking to a social worker a few months ago, and I said, well, call me anytime because I love fighting. And we
You
both,
say you
just
love
started laughing.
fighting?
I
What?
love fighting. And
Okay.
because we're talking about IEPs, and
Okay.
she was saying that she wasn't knowledgeable,
Uh-huh.
and she wanted to become more knowledgeable about IEPs, so that when she advocated for her children in the school system, she would be able to advocate, um, more successfully. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, call me anytime. We
Okay.
can we can we can talk, because I love fight, because that's what sometimes what it feels like. And and you've been through it, I'm sure, and other moms you talk to, when you're going into IEP meetings, sometimes it can feel like you're going into a fight.
Well,
It can.
I certainly understand how it could feel like you're going
Mhm,
into a fight. One of the things that we like to convey here is that, we are going to advocate and we're going to do so
mhm,
logically because we
mhm.
want to make sure that we yield results that move our children forward and continue to build bridges with service providers because they are our team members. With that
Absolutely.
being said, there's a couple of things that you said that have pinged my ear.
Mhm.
The first thing was going to the pediatrician with your son and not holding him at fault because he didn't know. One of the things that I like to tell parents when I'm speaking to them, especially when they're young, is that I actually feel like sometimes we go to our pediatricians and we think that our pediatricians are just an holistic doctor for all things children, where their pediatrician is a general practitioner.
Right.
And
Right.
when you want specific uh, information, you need to go to specialists. So, one of the
Right.
places that parents can start off is Child Find, so that you can be paired with someone who's an early interventionist that are skilled in helping families navigate this environment as opposed to like a 15-minute well baby visit that you may get at your
Right.
pediatrician or getting a referral from your pediatrician or primary care provided to a developmental pediatrician or neurologist,
Absolutely.
someone who
Absolutely.
is skilled in looking at that thing. Oftentimes, we'll go into the pediatrician And because that's not his area or her area of expertise, they may offer us an answer based on their knowledge, and it may not be contextualized in the situation that we need acute services in at that time.
Absolutely.
So the other thing you said that kind of pinged my ears when you were talking about being specifically to the Black mother experience. Um, One of the reasons why I went back to school as well was because I wanted to be able to communicate my son's needs once. And when I say communicate his needs once, I wanted to be able to go into any meeting or any room and say things once and have everyone understand exactly what I was saying, because I was speaking in a vernacular that was most comfortable to the service providers. Now, I don't feel like every parent should have to do that. That's something that I made a decision to do. With that, when we think about things like cultural humility, and cultural humility is essentially an approach to service provisions or providing service for individuals, understanding that we need to be students of that person, understand their language, understand their lived experience, so that we can give them the best service. Oftentimes, as Black women, we can go into doctors' offices and we can try to convey what we are feeling in our everyday vernacular, and that might not be understood immediately. With that being said, one of the things that we can do in podcasts such as this is make sure that we give mothers language that they can use when they are advocating for their child. Because sometimes when we use those value statements, they don't necessarily translate to people who don't share our value system. So we can use those logical statements like, I have noticed X, Y, and Z. I've noticed that my baby isn't speaking. And then give some data points like 6 months ago, he had 4 words. Now he has no words. I would like to look closely into why my son has had this regression in language. Make sense?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so when we explain it like that, we put the logic on the table, and no one can claim, I don't understand what you are. You're doing a good job, mom. Give you a sticker. They know exactly. You're saying, this is what my child used to do. This is what my child is doing currently. This is where I'm trying to get my child.
That's why advocacy is so important. And when I'm talking with parents, what I want them to realize is that it's not advocacy. I think it's can for some parents feels big, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really not hard. You feel like it's hard, but once I break it down to nuts and bolts and just the basic rules and regulations of public school law, it's really easy. It's really, and you can do it. Like I tell parents all the time, I'm everybody's cheerleader. You can do it. I'm going to teach you so you don't need me. My
Okay, I
job as a
love that.
therapist and an advocate, that's my job as a therapist and as an advocate, is to guide you and facilitate so that, one day I'm waving and saying, you got it. You can do it.
I
You don't need me.
love it
You don't
because
need me.
I tell, when I'm training service providers, I tell them that you don't want any family to say that you were the best teacher that their child ever had. You want them to say, after working with Miss Donna, I learned some strategies that
Right.
stayed with me, and I use them with my subsequent children. So you
Right.
want to make sure that you're increasing the capacity of families. Now, let's go back to your story. Now,
Yes.
you decided to go back to school, and by the time your son is starting elementary school,
Mm-hmm.
are you're now done with school?
Yes. So
Okay, so
99, end of 99, I'm out. He's in pre-K, and so in most states, age 3 they're eligible for free public school. So he had been receiving occupational therapy, speech
okay,
therapy through a specialized daycare in our area, and so he went from there to a specialized pre-K automatically, that
right.
was housed in the elementary school. So that's awesome. So I was able, by the time he went to that pre-K program and it was time for like our first IEP meeting, I was done. And
Boom.
with grad school, and I remember sitting, we have to go in there and sit at the little tables and the little chairs. And the case manager sat beside me, and she said, "Miss Prudence," she patted my knee, and she was like, "Everything's gonna be okay. Don't be nervous." And I said, "I'm fine. I'm not nervous."
Okay.
And and by the end of the meeting, they were just like, "Nope, she's not nervous, and she's not nervous." And so, because we live in a very rural area,
Okay.
and have the whole time. And just so, with Aaron and then with my clients, just over years, people just know, they know me. And
Okay.
so by the time he went to high school, when he transferred to high school, and it was time for his IEP meeting, I walked in with my binder, and the case manager said, "I told y'all she was coming with a binder. I told y'all."
See, I
Everybody,
love that you were
I told
prepared.
y'all.
So, what is
And
your son's official diagnosis?
so, and that's a story. Just
Okay.
a little quick story.
We want to hear it.
Because we didn't know, like we didn't know, um, because back in the day, he was given mixed receptive expressive language disorder, and
Okay.
so we had that for a while. And then his speech therapist, Sue Hunter, I love her forever, said, "I think I know what's going on with Aaron," and we were like, "What?" And he was like 8. He was like 8 when she said he has Asperger's. And so I quickly went to the internet and looked it up, and I was like, "Yep, that's what it is." And so we had him tested, and so he had that official diagnosis. And so the age 8 or 9, between 8 and 9, which that became social communication disorder when the DSM 4 5 came out.
Okay.
But that's his diagnosis, and people call it also what they used to call it high functioning autism. Um, so that's his diagnosis. But yeah,
And so he
yeah.
got that
Mm,
middle elementary school, and
gosh,
then
yeah. Eight,
that
nine,
stayed with
yeah.
him for the rest of his life.
Right. That state,
So,
yeah. So that was his diagnosis, yeah,
so
for
talk
the
to
rest
us
of
a
his
little bit
time.
about transition, because I know some of our moms have very young children, and then some of our moms have children who are in, middle grades, or they are transitioning into high school. So how was the transition for you going from the K-12 experience into adulthood?
So what was important for us, um, and probably because I'm a chicken little type person, and what I mean by that is, as a therapist, I think part of our job is forecasting
Mhm.
and looking down the road and seeing the things that could happen, and trying to prepare for that. And also I come from that background of you have to have a plan A, B, and C, like hardworking parents. And so we always, from the beginning, of Aaron's journey, our mission, our vision was to make sure that Aaron had his version of a meaningful day. Like his
Mm.
what his life wanted to be, and his life had to have meaning. And so everything that we did was driven towards that. So around 16 is legally when public schools have to start transition plans for our babies. So they have to do that
Mhm.
anyway. So if they're not talking about it around 15 and a half, 16, then you, as a parent, you start talking about it. Like,
Mhm.
what is this? Let's start. What is his what is his transition plan?
Mhm.
What does he like to do? What is his interest? What does he want to do? And also, we introduced him to work.
Okay.
So he started working in high school, and he played sports while he was in high school as well. So I felt like, he could work, and he could learn social skills while playing sports, social skills and working, and he could learn transferable skills so that when he
Mhm.
got out of school, he would be employable. If he wanted to go right, to work, he wanted to go to college. So that was part of his transition plan. And his case manager and myself, I laugh at that, and myself, we, got our binders together and researched schools that had programs for children with ADHD, autism, that type of thing.
Okay.
and we found a school an hour and a half from our home, Lewisburg College.
Okay.
And he applied, he got in, and he went for a year. And unfortunately, the we couldn't afford the tuition the second year. Financial aid, like we got like $500 for the second year. I'm like, what are we supposed to do when tuition is like 20,000?
Right.
So he came home, and bless his heart, he's amazing. He has an amazing heart. He came home and he went to the community college and worked. While he came
Where
home,
did
he
he
worked while
work?
he worked. He worked at food
Where?
when he came home. He did that.
He worked at
Um,
Food Lion, you
he worked
said?
at Food Lion and went to
Okay.
school at the same time. And so, and this right here is cautionary. And I talked to parents about this too. Is he got to a point though he got burned out, and he was like, "Mama, I just need to take a break." And
Okay.
I said, "Okay." I said, "Okay." And I know he was really talking to me and not his father, because his father's really laid back, and I'm type A, go go go.
Right.
So when he said I need to take a break, I just said okay. And I was like, if you want to go back to school, fine. If you want to go back to work, fine. But you take your break, and you do that, because I hadn't thought about it. He had been working and going to school since he was 16, and I
Right.
just, this and the cautionary tale, and I experienced it with both my children, is that they have to choose their own path and what they truly want to do. And like my youngest one, most baby kids, they have no qualms about telling you how they feel, about you or themselves. Well, he told me my path is my path and your path is your path, and I know that your path helped you to become very successful. But just because my path is different doesn't mean I won't be successful too.
Okay, then.
Yeah, he snatched all my edges and got me all the way straight.
It's so funny you say that because I
Yeah,
always say that my child gathers my edges because it's
gathers,
so literal.
gathers.
Yeah.
And my oldest son, he's also a firstborn, so he's more diplomatic in
Mhm.
what he says to me. But my baby son he's a baby, and he just said, he was like, no, it's my path is different. And so I had to learn that with both of them, that their path is their path,
Okay.
and I have to back up. I have to back up. So
Okay. So what are some of the changes that you've seen in the autism community or the autism parenting community from when you started to present day?
first of all, there was no community, so let's just start with that.
Okay.
um you really my husband and I really felt like we're on an island by ourselves.
Mm.
And so that caused us to, as folks said, to cleave to one another, really tight, like our and that's why one of my passions is helping autistic families build villages of support,
Boom.
because we know what that's like. We know what it's
Right.
like to kind of look around and say, like, oh my God, like, we don't, what are we going to do? And
Mhm.
then realize that we have to do it. We have to build it. We have to look around and realize and see who can help us biologically, psychologically, socially, and spiritually, and build that village ourselves. And
Boom.
so we did that. And it changes over time. Members fall off and they add on, and then some stay for life or whatever. But the biggest change has been that there actually are villages now. There are resources now. There, you can actually go online and find support groups, or
Mhm.
there are actual social skills groups that your children can attend now.
Mhm.
There are actual more organizations that your children can get help from now. So the biggest change is just more. If I could just, it's more everything.
More.
Whereas when Aaron was little, there was nothing.
Wow.
And I'm just really thankful that we were able to have the support for me to be able to go to school, because my parents basically, raised Aaron while my husband worked swing shift, and I went to school. I went to school and worked.
Wow.
So, right. So, it's definitely, we've had that biopsychosocial spiritual village the whole time. The
And
whole
so
time.
you've had it the whole time. So now that Aaron is an adult,
Yes.
does he have his own village?
He has his own village, but basically it's us. But he still has his own little, well, not little, but his own world, his own interest, his own small group of people. But we are still his basic main village,
Okay, so you're
if
his
that
base.
makes sense.
It does, it does.
Mhm.
And so, are there any programs that you know or that you currently use that are in place to help him navigate life as an adult on the spectrum?
So for us in our area, it's so rural. The programs are here, but to be honest, and they're good programs, but we don't utilize them. And not to say that there's nothing wrong, that there's something wrong
Mhm,
with them, because there's they're awesome programs, but they're more for younger people. And so that's another issue, when autism becomes an adult. And I think I did, gosh, I think I did a speaking engagement on that at one time. Like, what do we do with our autistic adults,
mhm,
or autistic children when they become adults? Where are the resources? Where can they go? What can they do? So for us, to be quite frank and honest, we are his resource. So, for example, his work opportunities have come up as a result of people that we know, and
mhm.
so we are very particular about where he works, because he's had issues, where people just have not, to be honest, have not been friendly,
Uh,
at places where he's worked. And so we are very he's not working right now, and so we're actively looking, for an environment that's conducive, to his interests, and also friendly, an autism friendly environment. um, and so for parents, I say to parents of adult children on the
mhm.
spectrum, that there are programs out there to help your child. The first stop I would suggest is vocational rehab, and that they have state offices and national offices, but you can go to every county, usually in every um, state has a vocational rehabilitation offices, and you can take your child there, and they will help. They have rehabilitation counselors, what I went to school for, and they can help you. They can help you with that process of getting them employed, competitive employment, in a space where they will feel comfortable. So that
Boom.
would be my first, if they're able to. Um, because autism is a spectrum disorder, there's some children and some adults who will need minimal support, some will need moderate supports, and then some will need major supports their whole lives. So if they need, minimal to moderate support, vocational rehab can be very helpful. And of course, if they need, major supports, then um, maybe Social Security or different, benefits like that would be helpful. But as far as community supports, I always talk about that social, when I talk about whole villages,
Mhm,
biopsychosocial, spiritual village,
mhm.
that social component is important. Just getting out in the community, talking to employers, seeing if they will be open to hiring folks on the spectrum, explaining, tax credit, that you get a tax credit if you
That
hire
part.
folks. I mean, because I've been in the mental health field for over 30 years.
Mhm.
So supported employment, different mental health programs. So I've done that. And I've done that on behalf, of Aaron, with my son, with no shame. I've done it on behalf of clients.
Boom,
Like,
bang, pow.
but let's get out here and go to Walmart and talk to somebody. Let's go to Roses. Let's get prepared for this interview. Let's And my life has been, what I've done in my personal life, I've done in my professional life. I don't know it's like. What else would I do? It's like, what else what else would I do in my life?
But that's when you say that, that is something that I'm now learning the more and more that I speak with mothers of children with disabilities, not just autism, that the work that we do tends to go towards advocacy, or we may end up starting a nonprofit, or we may, um, without structure, make ourselves available to people to assist, because we know once we've gone through this journey that it's one that you shouldn't do alone. There's
Right.
so much of a learning curve, and there's things that you're learning so quickly. With that, what advice would you offer a mother who may be near transitioning out of the K-12 environment to better prepare her, not necessarily her child, but to prepare her mind and her heart for that transition from being having a school age child, K-12, to having an adult child on the spectrum?
Awesome question, because I saw that coming for me, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And while I was raised, in a household with neurotypical siblings, well, I don't know. I think all of us, that I think we all had ADHD. But anyway, I remember my parents and us leaving home,
Hmm.
and my mama would tell us how her and my dad would sit on the front porch, and like she was like, we just sit there looking crazy, like we didn't know what to do, you know. And I remember thinking, I don't want that to happen to me. I
Hmm.
remember saying that's not going to happen to me. And so when Aaron was nearing 12th grade, because I had him so young, like I was like 21, 22, so I was still like 39, 40. And I was like, what's next for me? And so I started that journey in my mind of like, what's next for me? And I'll tell anybody, whether your child is on the spectrum or not, find something that is yours, that is just yours, that has nothing to do with your kids.
Right.
Because, even if you're offering support for your child on the spectrum, or whether you have a neurotypical child and they're leaving home, or a lot of neurotypical children, honey, are not leaving home. They still here. They still at the house. Still at the house. You
Oh, no.
still they still at the house. They're not going anywhere. Gen Z is not going anywhere. You
It's
still
expensive out there.
oh my God, that's a whole nother podcast. Just groceries. Um, you want something that's yours. And don't forget, and while you're building a village for your child and your child and your family, build one for yourself.
Right.
Build one for yourself. That is what I would tell any mom or any committed couple who is raising a child that needs supports. My husband and myself, thank the good Lord, we have beat the odds, because couples with a child with disabilities are 50% more likely to divorce. And we made a decision early to stick together and to make sure that Aaron was okay. But we also made a decision early, probably because we're young and still, so we still gonna rip and run. But we made the decision to spend time apart
Hmm.
from being parents. So
Hmm.
we still have now, and look what I always say, we're still doing date night, vacations, just riding out, because we country. We ride out. Um, I sure say to God, I'm from North Carolina, we country. We ride out.
I know exactly
Um,
what you mean.
Saturday morning conversations. You have to make that separate time. If you're in a committed relationship with your significant other, make that separate time. If you're not in a committed relationship, um, just spend time doing something that you love. Aside from spending time with my husband, I love gardening. I love flowers. Anybody that sees me and knows me on social media knows this time of year is it for me. I'm getting my seeds and my pots and everything ready. I love reading. I love writing. I've written 2 books. Um, and it's so these things are mine. And so that's what I tell mothers, because they say I'm exhausted. I've given my life for my kids.
Mhm.
I've invested. And I was like, and I'll say quickly, we're not doing the martyr thing over here. We're not doing it.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, get something that's yours. Because you can choose it. You can sit there and act like you can't choose it, but you can choose it. So find
That's
something that's
where
yours.
I am now. I'm like,
Hmm.
my son is a junior
Hmm.
in high school, and he'll be transitioning into college in the next year and a half. And so it's one of those things where he's been a large part of my identity. He might be the
Hmm.
largest part of my identity for the past
Hmm.
7 years. And I take great pride in that. With that being said, I am a single woman, and I was like,
Mhm.
when I made a very conscious decision not to enter into any long-term romantic relationships
Mhm.
while parenting him, because I had my own I don't know if they were founded precautions, but they were in my gut. I didn't necessarily want to have to
Understand.
explain my parenting philosophies to another individual. I didn't want to bring an energy into the house that mightn't receive him
Right.
as he is, authentically and without apology. So that was a decision that I just made as a mother. With
Right.
that being said, he's now getting business, and that's something that I was not prepared for. I
Correct.
knew he would get older, like in years, but I don't think I was ready for the maturity. I wasn't ready for him to want so many things outside of me. And so with
Oh.
that, yeah, it was one of those things. When he first turned 13, it was like no one warned me. It was how you said you felt like the talking just had
Right.
stopped overnight. I feel like one day he was my baby and he was sitting on the couch and we would watch movies together.
Mhm.
And then the next day he went in his room and he closed the door. And it was one of those things where I used to go to the skate park and I used to wait outside for him, reading a book or on social media. And he was starting to get to the point where he's like, well, you can go now. And I was like, wait, what? So
And I'm
now,
sitting over here like, okay. And my thing, because I think for me, I wanted so much for Aaron to have that social interaction
Mhm,
that, like, when he started dating or having, showing the interest, I was just like, I was like, oh my God,
I
answer
could.
prayer. For me, it was like an answer prayer. Going to the prom and, answer prayer, girlfriends, answer prayer. So for me, I was like, that's awesome. And I was like, Lord, I thank you. It was like, I thank you for sending, young women that look past the autism, because all his girlfriends have been neurotypical.
Praise God.
So, I was like, well, thank you. Thank you for sending, young women that, and to be, that were brave enough, because, they weren't always treated well, for dating him. And that's the truth,
They
because
weren't treated well by who?
by their peers for
Really?
dating Aaron, because, Aaron has always been unapologetically Aaron. And so we would talk about it, because well, that's another whole podcast about masking and different things, which, I encourage folks on the spectrum not to mask and to be unapologetically themselves. And
Right.
Aaron has always been himself, stemming quirks, whatever people want,
Right.
and he's always been comfortable with that.
That's
And
one of the things
but
that I'm gonna hop in here when you said about masking.
mhm.
I had a support group with some moms, and a lot of times we talk about having our children assimilate.
Mm,
They're trying to get them as neurotypical adjacent as possible. And
I
I
understand
have a
that.
different school of thought. I actually believe that people should be people. And while I know that sometimes we may feel the need, thinking that it's easier for our children if they were able to act as neurotypical as possible. But what I found with my son is he's unapologetically him, and the people who are meant to be in his space
Right.
will find him. And if
I had to
he
learn
is
that. Yeah.
right, and if he's
Yeah.
anyone other than Ricky too, his people won't be able to find him. So
Yeah.
now, he's really big in music, he's really big in the band, and the individuals who share that community appreciate all of his gifts. Everybody's not for everybody. So I
Right.
appreciate, how you use the word masking, because I do think sometimes it's almost like passing. You're trying to pass
It
for
is.
neurotypical. If you're neurodiverse, I know it takes time for us as parents to get there, but with our children, they've been neurodiverse all their lives. They don't know
Right.
anything. We may get the diagnosis at 8 or we may get the diagnosis at 5, but they were born that way. That's all they know. So the sooner we get okay with it, the
Right.
sooner we can help them be okay with who they are so that in time they can find their people and be around here with Aaron with all these girlfriends.
It's something. It is amazing. I just love that period of time for him. And I think as a mother, you I still, when he's not dating, part of me is like, oh, is he okay? Is he lonely? Is he sad? And and sometimes he'll look at me because he's a gleaner, and he'll just say, I'm fine, mom. Like, he can read my mind.
Right.
Before she even asked me, let me just go ahead and let this fool know that I am fine.
Because they
But
will read us like a book.
And I'm
They
like,
will
okay, okay,
read
okay. I'm gonna
us.
leave you alone. I'm gonna leave you alone. But yeah, I would tell any parent, create your own, biopsychosocial spiritual village. Get your physical, your physical business in order, because stress and fear will wreck your body.
Mm,
Go to your doctor and get a full workup, and whatever you have allowed stress to do, fix it psychologically. If you're struggling from depression, anxiety, overwhelm, then talk to somebody. If and if you need to, if you need some medicine for that, that's fine too. Socially, find you some folks that understand you, not
mm,
some folks who's gonna tell you to pray the autism away, not some. And I love God, and I'm saved and filled with the Holy Ghost, but not some folks that's just gonna tell you to pray the depression away, or somebody just all of that. And I believe in prayer, but sometimes we might talk to a therapist or something like that, and there's nothing wrong with
mm.
that. Some circle of people that you can call and talk to, and there's no judgment.
That
That's
part.
like, that's social. And spiritually, if you've moved away from God a little bit, or your spiritual foundation, move back to it. Because if you are in this world of autism, you need a spiritual foundation to keep you grounded. Because some days it's a roller coaster, or you're on that mountaintop and you feel great because they have mastered the skill, and or
Mhm.
they made the honor roll, or they made a friend. And then some days you sliding down the wall like the soap operas, and you are in a valley moment. You're in a valley
Exactly.
moment, and you like, Lord, that skill that they found, they lost it, or somebody picked on them, or they've had sensory overload. So you know it's about balancing, finding that whole life balance as much as you
Right.
can while you're raising a child on the spectrum.
Yeah, this is most certainly a faith walk. I say all the time that
Most definitely.
God is my co-parent. With that, now you told us what you would offer to another mother. If you could turn back the hands of time,
Mm,
go back decades, and whisper in your ear at the beginning of this journey,
mm-hmm.
what would you tell yourself?
Trust God more. uh don't parent from fear. Everything's going to be okay. And trust people more.
Ooh, trust people more.
Trust people more.
That was, I was always a loner. It
Mm,
wasn't until I had my baby that I had to learn how to trust people
trust
because,
people more.
again, like we talk about that learning curve, he
Right.
didn't have time for me to he didn't have time to wait for me to learn everything.
Right.
So I had to go to more knowledgeable others, people who have walked the walk before me, so that I could capitalize on the time that he has. With that, what joys have you found in this mothering journey?
uh Having Seeing him happy, I think. Oh, let me give you one. And this one made my mama cry, and I was just like, oh Lord. So we had taken them to Lewisburg, unpacked them, everything. And so we were leaving, and as we were leaving, like, I looked to my right, and he was on a swing, swinging, and he just looked so happy and so peaceful. And I was like, yep, this is where he's supposed to be. and this is it. And like my soul was satisfied. Like I think any mom can like attest to moments where you felt like this decision is the right decision and your child is in the right place and your child is happy. And that was a period of time where he found his village. And why anytime we would visit, he would be with friends and they would be like, oh, we're going to play pool, or oh, we're going to do, such and such. Or he would send pictures from his phone, we're going to play frisbee, or we're going to the food trucks, or we're getting ready to go to Walmart to grocery shop. And he could grocery shop because we had taught him.
Right.
We taught him how to budget. We taught him how to grocery shop. He knows how to take care of a house. He
Mm.
knows how to do inventory. So periods of joy for me are when Aaron is happy and when he's satisfied. Yeah, like when
Ooh,
yeah, that's
you
it for
just
me.
spoke to my
That's
whole heart.
that's it for
Like
me.
anyone who knows me knows that I am die hard. I'm a diehard fan of my son. And currently, my son is a fan of Florida A&M University,
Okay.
and I support his dream, with fervor, with all that is in me because of the thing that you just said. When I went there, and your children, you know when they're having a good time, when
Hmm.
they're having a great time, and when they are exactly where they're supposed to be, doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and you can see it in their eyes. And it's something
Right.
about when a child fits in.
Hmm.
And I went to the band camp there, and it literally was the first time since preschool, since teddy bear preschool, that I saw my son fit in. That was his village. And it is a peace that went over me. Like, I'm like, if I can just get my child here,
He'll be
I
okay.
know that I'll be able to exhale. I'll be able to exhale. So I want FAMU for him, but I also want it for me too, because
So you can
in
breathe.
that moment,
Yeah.
say that once more.
So you can breathe. But
So I can breathe.
I would tell parents too to breathe more. I have
Mhm.
I I have told more parents, breathe, mama. We'll be
Breathe.
talking on the phone, or they'll be sitting in the office, and I say, okay, first thing I want you to do is breathe. You're not breathing. You're
Right.
talking and you're not breathing because we don't realize we're not breathing.
Right,
We're just
because we're
going, going,
white
going,
knuckling
going.
it. We're just, I
Right.
mean, go mode, go mode, go mode.
Nope.
And it was like when he's there, I know he's been on FAMU's campus for 20 days of his whole life. That's 3 summers of band camp. And I have been able to breathe each time. I know he's good. The first couple nights, I was like, is he going to be okay? And then when I saw it, ain't no feeling in the world like it, being able to
Correct.
breathe. Thank you for saying that. As
Breathe.
we come to now, that's one right there. We're gonna situate that. And if you watch
Yeah.
your mama, take time right now and just breathe. We both gonna
Breathe.
breathe.
It's okay. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. Breathe.
Mm,
It's gonna be
just
okay.
breathe.
Breathe.
It's gonna be okay. Breathe. With that, Miss Keisha, do you have any final thoughts, any closing thoughts, something you like? I have these mothers watching, I have some service providers who may be watching. What do you want them to know as a parent who's gone through this? You are navigating it now on a level that many of us will enter in the next few years. What's on your heart?
For service providers, especially like my educators, take some time to look at your environment, your space, your classroom, and see if there's a way you can make it sensory friendly in an inexpensive way. There are a lot of like inexpensive, common sense ways to do it to accommodate kids. See if you can incorporate a buddy system that won't overwhelm neurotypical kids, but will help teach them teamwork and empathy.
Mm,
For parents, find something that is yours that you can identify with that is not about your kids, and
mm,
do it, embrace it, enjoy it. Go back to something that you enjoyed as a child that you no longer do and pick it back up. I don't care if it's jump rope. I used to crochet. I got to get back into it because it brought me like joy. Crocheting, writing, coloring. Coloring books is very calming.
Mm,
But find something that you do that you can identify with that is just you, that has nothing to do with your kids. Because stop answering when people ask you how you doing. Stop answering how your kids are doing. We all do it. When somebody
right,
asks you how you doing, answer with how you are doing,
right.
not
That
the
is true.
kids. That's your homework assignment. Because we all do it. How
Miss
you doing?
Keisha, you
You
gave
know how
him
you. The
homework.
first thing we'll do, we'll go right into how everybody else around us is doing. Put yourself first. I'll say
You're
this to
right.
mama, put yourself first. If you do not put yourself first, how can you care for anyone else if you don't care for yourself? And
Mm,
I'm gonna tell you, like folks say, I'm gonna tell you this and I'm gonna get off the phone. No, but I'm gonna tell you this for real. Because I told a mama this the other day. I said, now, and this is exactly how I said it, because I'm country now. And
hmm
all right, I'm a therapist to my heart. I said, now we run around here raising these not a head kids. And we are not taking time for ourselves. And meanwhile, African American women got the highest rates of heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes of any other population. And we
mm,
are dropping. We are dropping like flies. I said, and after we gone, life gonna keep going.
that
These
part.
kids gonna still be here.
Right.
So it would behoove us to take care of ourselves in a whole way, biopsychosocially and spiritually. So not only that we can be here to help nurture our kids to adulthood, so that we can be here and enjoy life
Right, right,
and can
right.
see our babies, get married, have jobs, and have grandbabies that you love to death and spoil to death like my parents did, and I had to threaten to not bring my children to the house if y'all keep taking them to Walmart every time I drop them off, and then when I pick them up, I got to fight them every time I go to Walmart. They think they getting something every time.
You
I,
said
you
now it's
know,
your turn to do that.
Yeah, like I said we, and I said we because I'm part of that. Like I got the trifecta. I have to do better, with my body,
Right.
and so I'm saying, I said to that mom, I'm saying to you, I said your homework assignment is to find one thing that's yours that you love and do it.
Boom, bang, pow.
Boom, bang,
I
pow.
love
We
that.
have to.
That's
We
a
have to.
wonderful closing thought because when you think about it, one, we don't breathe, and two, we don't take care of ourselves.
We
We don't
don't.
put ourselves first. And you think about it every time you get on the airplane, the first thing they tell you to do is grab your oxygen mask first and put it
First,
on because if you
first,
gasping for air, you can't save nobody.
first. People. I
But it's
mean, just
so
digging in. Yeah.
counterintuitive. I mean, that, like you keep saying, that could be a podcast. How do you prioritize self?
You
When
can
you have
do
a
it. You can do it. This is the core issue. Then we're really gonna go for real. Look, and this sentence right here is a podcast. We were not women, and especially African American women. We have not been conditioned to care for ourselves. We've been conditioned to care for everybody but ourselves.
that's
I had a person inbox me one time, and I was like, "This is so profound," because I grew up with her in church, and she said, "Keisha, you are still that little girl that's running around taking care of everybody." And I sat there because I was like, I don't remember as a child running around taking care of everybody. But apparently I've been doing that my whole life. But I
mm,
just didn't know it. And
mm,
we've been doing that, and we've gotten that message internalized at some point as women and as African American women, that our needs are at the bottom, and that our
mhm,
job is to facilitate joy, peace, and happiness for everyone else, to our whole wellness detriment. And so
mhm,
what we are experiencing as women, we might be the most educated population, but we're the sickest.
mm,
We're most
mm.
educated, but we're the sickest.
That's
We got
true.
all this education and we sick, dropping like flies.
Now that is something to think about, especially when you just talked about how we're conditioned to take care of people. It brought to my mind too, because when you factor in that many of us are first generation college or not
Mhm.
yet college, I think about phenomena such as parentification and adultification, that for
Hmm.
so long, even as young children, we were caring for younger siblings, or we had to take some
Hmm.
responsibility in the house. And with that, you're conditioned from young to
Right.
take care of other people, to be responsible. And then you go right into mothering. And yeah, there is some time where we gotta grab our life and be healthy, happy, and whole.
Right.
That's message. That's
Hmm.
message.
We have to, and it's not, and that's a journey. That's not like
Mhm.
you get to the point where you have finally mastered it. That's something where you have stops and starts, and you have victories and you have some misses. But you put your, like the saints say, you put your hand in God's hand, and you say, Lord, teach me what to pick up and what to put down, and teach
Ooh,
me how to rest. Teach me how to rest. I had to pray that. I have to pray that. Teach
teach
me how to
me
rest.
how to rest.
Teach me how
Teach
to
me
rest.
what to pick up and what to put down.
What to
See,
put down.
right there.
Because
That's
I
our
used to pick up
final thought.
everything. I used to pick up everything. And he was like, now you know better.
You know
So
better.
learn the lesson before, you get put down. And you have no choice but to learn it. Learn it before you have no choice.
That
That
part.
that's yeah, that's my last word. Learn self-care before you have to learn it.
Boom, bang, pow.
Yes, ma'am.
Friends, with that, we've had some words, know what to put down, know what to pick up. Make sure you breathe. Have some of your own, mamas. We
That's right.
love you, and you are not alone. With that, we want to say goodbye, and we thank Keisha for your time and your wisdom. Thank you, my love.
Thank you for having me. I had a ball. Thank you.
Of course.